This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John McElroon. Joining me, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Boy, do we got a lot to get to on this week's episode. The Detroit Lions set historic franchise marks with an epic victory on Sunday Night Football in front of the eyes of the NFL world that tuned in. Over 28 million people tuned in to a matchup that would determine the NFC North Division title holder. It would determine who would hold the number one seed. And my goodness, it was a crazy environment. We'll recap that just a little bit later. We'll finish the podcast just checking in with the Wings and Pistons, who are starting to show that they're not frauds, they're not incompetent, but we got to start with a complaint. I can't believe sometimes just how out of touch and just how sometimes owners and sports teams will treat the people that are the lowest, that are the most loyal, but that typically would be considered lower end on the totem pole. When you have a season ticket holder base for the Red Wings and they haven't won, I don't understand the justification for jacking up season ticket prices. I mean, these great fans that are ending up sitting in the 300s, they're teachers, they're steel workers, they're hardworking people that have to grind to afford tickets. And you're charging people right now, according to Tammy Chin, who's been a long-time Red Wings fan, loyal messenger and someone who supported Detroit Sports Podcast. She was paying $4,700 for a pair. And she goes on Twitter after meetings. You think you're going to meet your ticket rep. It's going to be a good time. You hope that the ownership's like, thank you for your patience. We're going to try to not raise it too much. When she had to go to her ticket rep and sit down, not even an email, she posts on Twitter, I saw it, she posted it 14 hours ago before we recorded. She posted, I'm bummed that this will probably be our last year as season ticket holders for the Red Wings. Our 2 seats for the full season, and I got the details because I've been messaging her because I was like, okay, people are like, no, this is wrong. Our half season didn't go up that much. But her tickets in section 301 for the pair, 2 tickets for the year, cost $4,700. So that's about $2,600, $2,800 or so for the year. Those same tickets next year, okay, from $2,300 for one, go up to $9,000 each. The Red Wings have the gall to ask this lady for $18,000 from the time when she was paying $4,700. And the reason is, I asked her, I said, is that a mistake? Are you sure? She's like, nope, it was $4,700 for the pair, and now it's $18,000 because the Red Wings are turning those sections, the 301, they're turning it into club seats, and you get food, you get parking for all the games. Okay, I get it. You're offering a little bit more for the games and stuff, and you're trying to make it a little bit more high end. But you're going from $4,700 to $18,000. Where's the justification saying, okay, maybe from $5,000 to $10,000? You could say, what kind of fucking food are you going to be serving these people? Caviar? I mean, come on. You could even say, look, you don't need the food package. You don't have to make it mandatory. Like, come on, man. I think that in the 300 level, that's where your most loyal, diehard fan base is, and there's not going to be a lot that can tolerate over 100. People are doing the math. It's over 350% increase. I mean, I told her, I said, look, we're going to talk about it with my guy. I saw your post. It's ridiculous. It's not fair. That's like, and here's the thing. I understand ticket price raising. The Lions did it, but the Wings have not been in the postseason for several years. They're now just starting to pick up the pace after firing Derek Lalonde. There is no justification to do that to your fan base to go up to that degree because you're taxing the most loyal fans. I'm disgusted by it. I posted, no way this great fan should have that happen to her. Shame on the Red Wings for doing that. We're going to highlight it here. It's embarrassing. It's what everybody's messaging her, saying we're so sorry, you're pricing out your fans. Okay, I get it. 10%, 15%, over 100%. It's not right. It's you and I relate to the average fan. I knew what it was like where my mom took me to one game a year as a kid from the time I was 8 till 15. One. And that was it. That was like the home run grand slam. And so that's why I never take it for granted. That's why I apply for so many credentials, because the opportunities weren't there when I was a kid. My parents were regular folks. We had everything we needed, but nothing really extra. But I didn't want anything extra. We were great. I just was loving life, that they were two good parents and they were there. So I knew what it meant to go down to Tiger Stadium and her trying to figure out parking and asking 50 people how to go from a parking lot to a stadium. Her poor little heart trying to let me watch Detroit Tigers baseball and have a good time in the late 80s. So for this, it hits home that that's not how people should do things. It's so frustrating. I can't believe that they're doing this. And you said it best. If that's how you treat your fans, I can't stand for what Chris Ilitch did to this one particular fan. Tammy Chin does not deserve that, cuz.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, Ilitch has shown time and time again that he is out of touch with the fan base, and he kind of conducts himself like an arrogant ass. To go and raise ticket prices over 380% is absolutely insane. And to me, it's mind-boggling, because you have a product on the ice that doesn't win. You have a product on the ice that is struggling. Cool. You got a new coach. You got a little bit of a new coach bump. That's fantastic. But you're still struggling to be competitive, make playoff runs, and you haven't competed for a Stanley Cup, and I can't tell you how long, much less a playoff spot. So to have the gall and the audacity to go and do that to a loyal fan, and to just one of the loyalist fan bases. The Detroit Red Wings are one of the loyalist fan bases. Last year, they were competing for a playoff spot, and they were a couple games out. People broke out their old little car flags and were driving around town with their car flags on. And yet you want to go and dump on these people who have supported you through awful season after awful season after awful season after subpar play every single week. Look, we're going to talk about the Wings. We're going to talk about the Pistons later on in this show. But what you've done over the last, 10, 12 years, it hasn't been great. The product that you put on the ice has not been good. And specifically, the last 7 years hasn't been very good at all. And to go and then tax your customer base that much, it's not like it's a bit of a tax hike, right? Those things I think we understand as fans, right? We don't like them. Nobody likes them. Nobody likes paying more for the same thing. But you get it, right? So you've got a set of season tickets you're paying $2,000 for. Next thing you know, they go up to $2,500. You're like, yeah, I don't like it, but it's the cost of doing business. And you can kind of justify it. And in your real life, you can figure out ways to kind of scrap together the last little bit of $500 to kind of put you over the top and make you have the ability to keep those season tickets. When you go from basically less than $2,000 all the way up to $9,000 per ticket, I don't know how you find that in the coffers. I don't know how you have that money just laying around. It doesn't work like that, especially not in these days. Like everybody's getting hit hard. Like nobody's making enough money to sit there and kind of outrun inflation. So to look at your fan base and say, look, yeah, we're going to need right around $7,500 more for those same tickets, get the hell out of here, bro. Like, it's just not happening. And it just shows that you have one of the worst owners in sports right now running two of your organizations in this town. Chris Ilitch is absolute trash as an owner. Chris Ilitch does not care about you, the fan. Chris Ilitch is more worried about this bottom line. He's not worried about winning, does not care about your teams, and does not care about you. Look at what Chris Ilitch did when they built Little Caesars Arena. Look at what Chris Ilitch did when they were supposed to build up that area around Hockeytown Cafe. Look at that whole area. They've done nothing with it. They've done absolutely nothing with it. He took money from the city and he ran with it, stuffed it in his own checkbook. He's done nothing with it. Yes, you have a new stadium and cool. Little Caesars Arena is really, really nice, right? I'm really curious what kind of rent he's charging the Pistons, because to me, you're making money hand over fist with that property, and then with all of the money that you were given to help develop the area around it, you've done nothing with it, and you continue to shit on your fans, whether it's with the product you put on the ice or the field, and it's the constant price hikes for the tickets, and it's the lack of a winner that you keep rolling out there every single season. At a certain point, your fan base is going to turn on you. Your fan base is going to end up becoming what your father inherited before he built it up to be one of the best organizations in all of the NHL, in all of MLB. So keep doing what you're doing, Chris Ilitch, because you are going to wreck your fan base, and you are going to wreck the money that you have coming in, because you are a complete idiot and ass. I can't stand Chris Ilitch.
Yeah, and seeing some of the comments, people are like, okay, they're converting the seats into club seats. So it is a lot more. I understand that.
I get that too, man, but like.
Yeah, but it's not fair, because she's somebody that, has been loyal, and it's through no control.
You know what a good organization would do? If that's the case, if you're converting a whole section of your arena to club seats or whatever, you work with you would have your ticket broker, and you would have your season ticket holder work together to try to find some type of comparable seat that you could put them in for a comparable price. That's what you would do. You would figure out a way to take care of those who have been taking care of you. But again, Chris Ilitch doesn't see that. All he sees are dollar signs. He just sees his checkbook getting fatter.
Yeah, it's for context. Me and Kenny were season ticket holders. We were excited at Ford Field around the time the stadium opened. I think we were on the waiting list at the time for season tickets for about a year or two. So we wanted to do it. We wanted to tailgate. We would hang out, and the price was reasonable. It was about, in the 18th row in the end zone, it was about $45 a game. So it ended up being $450. So reasonably speaking, as a young 20-year-old, it's okay. It's, 10 games, $45. You're hanging out, food, the cost. You're like, okay, this is reasonable. But then every single year after, then it became $480. Then it became $510. Then it became $530. Then it became $540. And we were like, in the 3-4 years we were season ticket holders, we maybe saw 4 wins, cuz. And we enjoyed the time talking, bullshitting. Really, it was just time for us to catch up. The Lions game was just the backdrop of fun times that we had with the community that was behind us. But after it got to like 570 into the 600s, realistically, honestly, Kenny said, look, man, we're still early in our careers. That's going to be a commitment that I think he saw, and I have to thank him, because at the time I was bummed out. I was like, all right, it's something we were doing. I thought, man, I don't get to see my guy. I don't get to tailgate. I'm not part of it. He just said I can't do it. And at the time, I don't think I was mad at him, but I was disappointed. Like, man, at the same time, I get it. It's a commodity, but those same tickets, cuz, that started off at $45 eventually would now probably be in the neighborhood of, so for $450, starting at $450 would roughly be $3,000 today. So it's something that you look at. It's kind of like, to compare, it's just like a growing expense at the rate where you go, my goodness, it wouldn't have provided the joy other than the last 3 years. We would have been paying thousands upon thousands and thousands of dollars. And I can share jokingly here that part of the reason that it's fun to work in the NFL a little bit is to kind of recoup some of the investment by a lot. So the money that we invested, the money that Mrs. Ford taxed me, I got back in spades. So you recognize that, look, and it's true. I used to joke, and I bet, I don't know if your dad was the same way, but you can share it or not. My dad was not starstruck. He'd always see me being like, wow, Alan Trammell and Cecil Fielder, these guys are awesome. And he'd look at me and be like, what's your problem? Why are you marking out for some other dudes? And he'd always say, he takes a shit just like you and I do. And even if it was he'd be like, John, and it would joke, I got it. But he'd be like, I'm the same kind of guy that I put my pants on just like he does. If the president of the United States walked into this house, we'd have a conversation. But he's like, you don't have to mark out for any individual. They're all human. They all hurt. They all take a shit every single day. They all got to put their pants on. And it was always funny to see that reflected in movies where people be like, he ain't paying your bills. Don't worry about it. That's how my dad was. So it was always interesting to see how it always played out. And now to see, this is kind of how you build disconnect with your fans, by jacking up prices and doing stuff like that.
And look, I agree with you 107%. And I think what drives a bigger wedge into all of it is it's the product. You know, like, you haven't done anything where you necessarily deserve to increase those ticket prices. You know, the Lions just got done raising ticket prices again for the second year in a row. And the fans were pretty upset. There's a bit of an outcry. But at least you can look on the field. You can say, look, they're building towards something. They're giving you playoff games. You can see, if you really want to kind of spin it and help yourself with a little bit of a mental fuck, you can spin it and you can be like, the money that I'm paying this team, they're reinvesting in this team, and they are giving me something for that money. I'm having a good time when I go to the games on Sundays, or when I go to the game on Thursday, or on a Monday night, and I'm getting to watch a winning product. When you look at the Red Wings and you look at what they're doing, things have shifted over the last 5-6 games, but you go back over the course of, like I said, the last 7 years have been absolutely horrible. It's been absolutely dreadful. You can't get into the playoffs. You have a team where you have a fan base that gets excited when you are games, not a game, games out of an 8th seed. When you are games out of being a bottom feeder for somebody who's going to mollywop you when you get to the playoffs. That's how bad it's been. Like, you are dying on a vine. You are hungry for anything, and you have an owner who's now coming to you and saying, yeah, you know what? We need more money from you. Product's probably going to stay the same, because I didn't want to pay to fire the old head coach who sucked. We finally got a new guy in weeks later, months later, because I didn't want to cut that check. But you know what? I want that check from you so I can turn this into a club seating area so I can then charge more money. Yeah. So I'm going to need that in spades. Thanks a lot. And that's what that is Chris Ilitch's mentality right now, and it is sad to see, bro. It is really sad and frustrating to see. Look at your Tigers. All right, this is one of the only sports teams we can do that with here. Look at your Tigers. You have arguably the best pitcher in baseball, in Tarek Skubal. This is a guy who you should be building your franchise around. This is a guy who you should be swooning to sign. And what comes out? Comes out that he was lowballed with an offer. Comes out that they're not even really negotiating or talking about an extension. You've got guys out there that could make your baseball team better, but your owner doesn't want to pay them for any longer than a year, maybe 2 years. And the 2 years is if they can get a discount. You have a third baseman out there in Alex Bregman who would make your team so much better, but you're going to squabble over what would roughly amount to $15 or $20 million over the course of maybe a season. And there's a middle ground there that if you just give in, you guys could come to it, and you could then have a really good caliber third baseman who's going to help bolster your team. And we've talked about this. The thing that gets fans in the stands and the things that drives up prices at gates are wins. When your team is winning, people show up, people have no problem spending money, and you get it all back in return if you spend the money on the roster, and that roster is good, and you're able to string together those W's to get into the playoffs, because that's where the real money is in those playoff ticket prices. If you really are an owner, that's where the money is. The money comes from your TV deals, and the money comes from your playoff ticket prices. And if you're good enough, and you put a team good enough together, you'll get there. Instead, you got this guy who wants to play small ball and is trying to do everything on the cheap. And you see it with the hockey team, you see it with the baseball team, and it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, I hope that Tammy gets treated fairly. I hope that the story gets out. And look, we have to be honest, they are changing it to a club seat. It is more pricey, but it's just, you should win first, and you should find ways to make your fans happy so she doesn't have to ever go to social media to share that. It's just a shame, but it's disconnected. Like, basically, it's becoming for the elite. Sports should not be for the elite. But I get it, it's season tickets. You know, I do understand that it's a privilege and a right, but it does have the feel it's for the elite. And I don't like that feeling. You know what I mean? To be honest, it would cost me $600-700 to take a family of 4 with my girls and my nephew. It cost me $1,200 because he eats like a horse. Mm-hmm. And I took him to a baseball game, and bro, he could eat literally with his skinny frame, 3 hot dogs, 2 pretzels, popcorn, and drinks galore, and he's still hungry. And I'm like, so my brother-in-law is like, yeah, have fun taking him. I'm all excited. And he's like, it's like, you're going to have to spend $200 in food. And I was like, come on, nephew, are you serious? You eat this much? He's like, yeah. And he was just eating. I said, God damn it, I want that metabolism one time in my life. I said, I said, nephew, I fucking gained 5 pounds just looking at you. God damn. But I was happy, but to do it as a season ticket holder, it's tough. But I hope that, the pressure that social media will bring and the negative attention will help this poor lady figure out what to do, because she's just a regular fan. And, check the comments. You see it at Detroit Podcast, what fans have said to her, and we'll follow along. We'll give you an update on what happened. Now, turning our attention to the Detroit Lions, cause, the air was thick in that first half. It was competitive. It was defensive, and it was a game in which that first half you saw 2 teams battling it out, a little tight, and eventually the Detroit Lions pulled away offensively and won 31-9. Their defense really stepped up, but cuz that first half, how are you feeling as the offense kind of struggled a little bit to move the ball? The game was tight early on, and I think both teams kind of felt it in a game that had such huge ramifications.
So as the game started to unfold, I wasn't necessarily worried. I've got a buddy who is the doom and gloom Lions fan. Before this game started, he was like, take the kids' college fund, put it on Minnesota. We're losing this game. And I was like, bro, just calm down. I was like, have a little bit of faith. So as the game starts to unwind a little bit, there's a couple of fourth downs that don't get completed. There's a couple of turnovers. The Lions defense looks really, really good and is keeping them in this game, but the offense is looking like it's anchored, like it just can't get out of the starting blocks. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really concerned. I'm like, they're going to figure it out. If it's one thing with this team, right, they go in at halftime, and you can see the halftime adjustments. They come out, and they're able to start firing on all cylinders. The offense ends up getting ignited when a kickoff goes out of bounds. They get the ball at the 40, and then within 2 and 3 plays, they are within Jake Bates' field goal range, and they're able to kick a field goal and kind of extend this lead going into halftime. And they never really looked back after that. The defense played so incredibly well. They played really well that first half, but they played even better, which is hard to say because Minnesota got down into the red zone multiple times, and multiple times came away with either 0 points or they could only come away with 3. So Detroit's defense was on its game. And like I said, that all happened in the first half. Second half, they didn't give up a whole lot of anything. Second half, they were locked down and shut Minnesota down in that second half. And they had Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. It was crazy impressive. The whole time that offense is now churning, and that offense is able to get the ball down the field. They're able to score. That offense is able to take care of the ball on the fourth downs. That offense is able to get guys in scoring positions. That offense is able to get Jahmyr Gibbs going, and they're able to take advantage, and they're able to run away and hide in this game. And it was incredibly impressive to me. And it had me thinking, are we going to be able to get that same type of defensive pressure? Because that's really what the difference of this game was that defensive pressure. They're going to be able to get that same type of defensive pressure. Are they still going to be able to get those same timely stops? Is this offense still going to be able to operate at this high level, this massive caliber of offense that they operate that is the best in the league? Are they going to be able to do that for 3 more weeks of the season? And I think there's the possibility that they can do it. I think getting this bye week helps a lot because you're going to get guys healthy. You already seen what the addition of Alex Anzalone meant to that defense. You're going to get guys who are going to come back healthy. And that's going to make a world of difference. It allows guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, who have been battling bumps and bruises, to rest up. Same thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown. It allows Jared Goff a little bit of time to kind of get his legs back underneath him and kind of rest up, and they can start focusing and watching other teams play and kind of starting to pick up and dial in on a couple of things as they watch these playoff games unfold this week. So I think them getting the number 1 seed, incredibly important. I do think they have the ability to play this same style of football. Yes, I think it'll be a little bit closer. And no, I do not think that the offense will be able to go out there and score damn near 40 points every game. But I do think that they will be able to play a winning brand of football for the next 3 weeks and help them win a Super Bowl? Do you think they're able to sustain this style of play where the defense is opportunistic? The defense takes advantage of mistakes by the opposing team's offense, where this team's offense is able to basically dictate what they want to do and get the ball down the field and score points seemingly at will. Can they do it for another 3 weeks? That's how long the rest of the NFL season is for the Detroit Lions. It's only 3 more weeks.
I think to start, I think it's good enough for the NFC, but the question mark is against the best of the best, creme de la creme, against probably you're looking at most likely Baltimore, Kansas City, or Buffalo.
So Kansas City doesn't scare me.
Right.
Baltimore, you're going to have to show me that Lamar Jackson can win a big game. So the moment you can show me that, then we can have that conversation.
Exactly.
The Bills are the team that maybe scare me.
Yes,
because Josh Allen is playing at an incredibly high level.
Yeah, to win the Super Bowl, it's going to take more. And that's just the mantra. And I think this football team can do it. And that's where you realize the collective unit, the greater parts of the team, offense, defense, special teams will put this team in a solid position. You also got to remember the bye week is so huge. A little bit of extra jolt for the Detroit Lions. You're getting David Montgomery back, Alex Anzalone healthier, day by day, provided just a huge spark for the team in coverage. And you recognize, all right, this is an offense that if they get clicking, can probably score 40 points pretty consistently. You're talking about, just good enough for the defense, because here's what the defense is doing that against Darnold and against a lot of teams. Aaron Glenn's able to adjust. He played cover 0, no safety in the back there. It was wild to see the film and to see the adjustments, and they pressured at a 66% clip that really frustrated Darnold, made him look really scared in opportunities where an NFL quarterback should be able to make those throws in the red zone. And that's predicated upon the game plan that Aaron Glenn is able to accomplish. And that's what you're seeing is you're seeing the emergence of a special defensive coordinator who probably is going to be an NFL head coach next year. And you're seeing what he's able to do as somebody with more experience, with the talent that likes him, with the talent that believes and buys in. You can play a lot of different ways. Because if I would have told you that Amik Robertson, hopefully I'm sharing this now, who's going to appear on the Detroit Sports Podcast, check it out. Hopefully it will air. Hopefully it goes through for Lions on SI. He's a dog. He's somebody that once he signed with the Lions, all the Raiders reporters were like, John, you're going to love Amik Robertson. He's a dog. Because I can stare at him eye to eye. He's 5'8", I'm 5'6", on a good day. So he's somebody that covered Justin Jefferson to the degree that he only got 3 catches. That's unheard of. Like you and I would say, oh no, Amik Robertson against Justin Jefferson, this is a huge problem. He made it so that when you go back and watch that, just go watch how he competed. Somebody that said, hey, you don't believe I can guard you? You're this all-world, all-pro, all this, all that. He shut him down. And I think that's where I like the idea of the Lions defense heard the noise. They heard the question from me directly to Alex Anzalone, looked him right in the face and said, people don't believe in your defense. What do you think? And he's looked at me and he laughed and he kind of gave that, I can't believe you asked me that. But yeah, I'm going to ask you that. And he said, it's bullshit. And I think it can be a rallying cry with no dissent, with no foil. There is no, in every great story, as the wrestling fans know and everybody knows, with no protagonist, then with no antagonist, the protagonist can't shine. And I think all the critics of the defense have come out and the defense said, oh, you don't think we can stop the Vikings? 9 points. So it was a hell of a job by the defense to create so much havoc. I think they can do it. But it's going to take more. I do think that as the postseason kind of happens, you can't be as handsy. You can't be as, in a situation where you're at, I don't know if the officials will let Amik Robertson play that physical. Do you think that their physical style of play will come back to haunt them in the postseason? It kind of has a feel of like you got to be a little slicker as the postseason comes because, as you get into the postseason, it's a little bit different with these officials. They can stop the Lions' play and momentum just that quick with the flags that they throw.
I think it's a fantastic question because the big thing coming out of this game was Minnesota was Justin Jefferson, were all these guys talking about how the Lions played them, how the Lions were very grabby, how the Lions were very handsy, how they felt like the Lions got the benefit of the doubt and they were holding a ton, and that was interfering with the offense's ability to make plays. And you look at the way that game was called. Now, I feel like there could have been a lot more flags that were thrown, but over the last couple weeks, there have been multiple pass interference calls. There have been multiple defensive holding calls downfield that have been gone against the Detroit Lions and have helped move that ball. The thing is, the Detroit Lions play so well defensively once they get into the red zone. Really and truly, once they get within the 10-yard line, they play incredible football. And more specifically, once they get within the 5-yard line, they are really, really, really difficult to score on. I think their style of football, their brand of football, I think it could cause a major problem with them getting to the Super Bowl and with them playing throughout the playoffs, because the referees know. The referees are hearing these things. There are league memorandums that go around that say, hey, you need to watch this. And what happens is they end up studying tape. You know, if you don't think that whoever's going to be refereeing the game coming up next week isn't going to sit down and rewatch that Minnesota game and isn't going to see some of the hands that the Lions players had on Minnesota's wide receivers, you're out of your mind. So I do believe it's going to be something that is going to have to be watched. It's something that's going to impact the style of play. Now, that being said, I think the Lions can kind of play a little Rudy Poo with the referees. I think the Lions can come out and they could play a very clean football game, right? Kind of take some of those hands and maybe not be as grabby. And I think if you can do that for a game, I think it kind of sets you up for that NFC Championship game where all of a sudden the referees aren't looking necessarily at that. And then you can kind of go back to that grabby, sticky type of defense that you like to play. But you've got to be able to kind of set the tone that no. What happened in that game was just limited to that game, and that's not really who we are. You've got to kind of try to pull that wool over the eyes of the officials. But the problem is there's 17 games of film showing how you guys play, how you guys are very contentious, how you guys are cantankerous, how you guys are up in the chest of wide receivers, up in the chest of running backs, and you're looking to put hits on quarterbacks. So there's a lot of game film out there. And I think it could play a bit of an impact with the way that the calls go against this defense. I do think it is a good sign, and it's good word that we're getting on Terrion Arnold.
Yes.
His test results are coming back negative on his ankle. I thought for sure he broke his ankle in that game. The secondary is beat up. It doesn't sound like you're going to get Carlton Davis back. You are at a certain point you had to play Kendall Vildor out there, and everybody just kind of wants to rail on a certain guy on the defense, and it's usually that guy. Having a healthy Terrion Arnold, and hopefully he will be as close to 100% as possible next week. What is your concern level with this secondary, especially going up against offenses like there's a good chance you will play Minnesota again? There is a chance that you will play Green Bay, who I feel like has a really good offense and really good wide receivers. You lost to the Bucs earlier. I think Baker Mayfield is playing incredible football, and they've got a fantastic wide receiver over there in Mike Evans. So you have offenses in this league. I mean, we're not even talking about the Rams and their dual threat at wide receiver. Those guys can feast on a thin secondary. What's your concern level with the secondary being banged up? Terrion Arnold hopefully being 100% for whoever they play next week. I just feel like they have taken a lot of body shots, and those things start to wear on you as the season goes on. Now, again, you get the week off, helps you health up a little bit. I think Amik Robertson showing that he can play an incredibly high level of cornerback against one of the best wide receivers in the league, and really taking him out of the game and really taking him out of play for that game against Minnesota. I think that bodes well, because now you have another piece. You have another chess piece that you can play with that maybe you didn't have 16 weeks ago, or maybe that you didn't know that you had 10 weeks ago. Now you have that, but still, they are not together the way that they were supposed to be constructed, and they are not going to be 100% healthy. Them being a little bit thin and being a little bit banged up, does that have you worried going into this playoff stretch?
A little bit, but not to the degree that I don't think they can win. Because here's the thing. If Fatu Melifonwu opens things up for some flexibility, I think that it's one of those deals that you look at it, it's one of those deals where you look at the Detroit Lions defense and you say, okay, you can move around Brian Branch to play nickel and move around Ifeatu Melifonwu where he can probably play a matchup that you think as well at safety. So I'm hoping that if he stays healthy, that's good with Branch and Kirby Joseph. And you just need Terrion Arnold and you need Amik Robertson and Kendall Vildor to kind of just manage. What stinks is that throughout the year, you know, Rakestraw was hurt. So you could have had that additional leverage there. Maybe he gets back, but he seems like more of a special teamer. So you got to make do. And I think with the pressure that you're able to get, you just basically cause nobody can lock down anybody. It's the NFL. But I think collectively, with the ability that they can do to play press man, I think it's good enough. It's one of those deals where I do think that, you know, the offense is so good that it can raise the level of the defense just enough where you just need basically, like they've been doing, 1 or 2 turnovers. If they can get just 1 turnover against whoever's next, that's good enough. And I just think that this football team, you know, I know people rail on the defense. I just think they're good enough to win with. They're good enough to. The problem is that we're all greedy and we want to win and dominate. But they had a dominant performance against Sam Darnold. The moment was too big. Now you just have to keep getting better and improving. Because here's the thing: I know you looked at it and you talked about the Vikings and you talked about the Packers and you talked about, you know, the other teams that they could play. But I think you're missing the team that they're going to play. I don't know. I'm a mark for experience and talent. I love the Commanders, bro.
Me too.
I think they win. I think it's the Lions and the Commanders. It's set up for the young upstart story with Dan Quinn bringing his team to the experienced Lions. They play a knockout, drag-out contest, but in the end, the Lions end up winning it. I want to see it. I want to see the young upstart come to Ford Field and learn what it's like, and Aaron Glenn to outcoach Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, and I just want to see that game. I think it would be great. Now, that's me selfishly, the fan. Now, me, the journalist, the guy that just kind of wants, it's an interesting story, but I think the Viking story, again, would be intriguing. Packers as well would have some juice. But I do think that, Dan Campbell, nobody asked about it, but maybe we'll get a chance at the start of next week. He said to Kevin O'Connell, I'll see you in 2 weeks. So he thinks chalk. He thinks everybody wins except the only upset is going to be the Vikings. That's the way in which the Vikings come back because the Lions play the lowest seed. You want to see that again? Do you say it's tough to win 3 times? Because I think they might even win by worse. I think that Sam Darnold is not used to that kind of pressure, and he's not used to, facing a defense that's going to blitz him at that kind of a rate. I would like to see the Commanders, but I also would like the story of the Rams too, if the Rams come back with Stafford, because ending his run, and plus the story with Kirby Joseph and Stafford calling him dirty is just gaining more heat as all these votes come in from players and coaches, leaving him out of the Pro Bowl and now the NFLPA players Pro Bowl vote, all pro vote, I think would make for another story. Who do you want to see in round 1? Who do you like?
I would love to see the Commanders. Look, I find them to be a very fascinating, interesting team. I like the way they're constructed, and I would love to see that matchup. But all that being said, I think you could see Minnesota again. Minnesota's got to go on the road. They've got to play the LA Rams. I think they have enough that could beat the Rams. The Rams are a team that I don't necessarily want to see. I just feel like I don't want to hear the Stafford conversation. I don't want to see Cooper Kupp. I don't want to see Puka Nacua. Kyron Williams, when he's dialed in, he is dangerous and he is tough. So I think that's probably the one team that I do not want to see going forward, especially since last year let's be honest, you won that playoff game, but you were lucky to get that W, right? Like, you played well, but that game was kind of a coin flip. And then you scoot ahead to the regular season this year, and really and truly you won that game based on a coin flip because you won it in overtime. and your offensive line shoved David Montgomery across the goal line. So I just don't want to see the Rams. I also don't want to lose to Stafford if there was the chance that they did lose the game. Now, I do think they could beat the Rams. I just don't want to see the Rams. I think there's too much potential that they could possibly lose that game. But I would love to see the Commanders. I think that would be fantastic. Minnesota, I think, would be a very interesting matchup because 3 times, it is very difficult to beat a team 3 times. And the way the Lions kind of handled Minnesota in that first game and then the way they manhandled them the second game, I don't know if you get that same result that you got in that second game in the third game. I think you really did have Kevin O'Connell kind of playing out of his depth. He was going for it a lot on 4th down, when normally he would just take the 3 points, keep it moving. I also feel like defensively, they have a very good team, right? But I think they were kind of shook a little bit, and so they started playing a little bit differently defensively. I think if you were to get to a third game, and this was to be for all the marbles, winner gets to advance, loser goes home, I think you're going to see a different type of football game. I think you would see something probably a little bit closer to that first game, and I think it would be incredibly difficult for the Lions to come away with the win. That being said, I don't necessarily don't want to see them. I just think it's going to be a tougher matchup. I think if looking at the teams, if there was one team that I did not want to play, it would be the Rams. If there was a team that I would love to play, because I would just love to see how the Lions matched up against them, it would be the Washington Commanders. If there's one team out there, you've already said you want to see the Commanders as well. If there was one team out there that you did not want to see, would it be Minnesota again for the 3rd time? Or would it be the Rams for the 2nd time? Or would it be the team that actually beat you this season in the Bucs? Now, things would have to kind of work out where you'd have to see the Bucs, and that would probably be a round 2 matchup. But is there a team that's remaining right now that you absolutely do not want to see?
Yeah, no, I don't want to see the Rams. I think that they can get hot. There's one of those things where it'd be a shootout potential, and Stafford would know how to exploit the defense, and he also has motivation as well. It'd probably be another knockout, drag-out situation. So I think that Stafford understands the lore of the Lions. He understands Ford Field, and Nakua and Kupp can get hot at just the right time. So
I think the only reason to see the Rams again was so we could boo the kids. And that, Stafford said we booed the kids. We're a disgraceful fan base because we booed the kids.
Yeah. No,
that bitch needs to shut up. I hate her.
No. None of that. We don't need we've had our fill. The only juice would be Kirby Joseph and what he'd say, and he'd probably get talked to and say, hey, we just gotta, handle business and go out there. But yeah, I hope that listen, I think that the Lions pretty much, however they get there, I want to see the Vikings. However they get to the NFC Championship, I want to see the Lions and the Eagles match up 1 versus 2, mano a mano. Let's go. Hurts healthy. Lions defense.
I'll be honest with you, I don't want to see that matchup at all.
You don't know. I think I think the Lions can out-tough them. I think that the offense will make plays for the Eagles, but the Lions will out-tough them, and they'll break the will of the Eagles. I
agree with you 110%.
I think they will.
I just think that adding Jalen Hurts into that mix becomes a very dangerous cocktail. Look, this defense does a really good job of getting in and kind of constricting that pocket. They did a really nice job of doing that against Sam Darnold, right? That was why they were successful. You try to do something like that against Jalen Hurts, he's going to get to the outside. He's fleet of foot. He's quick. So unless you lay a good lick on him and you knock him silly and you get whoever their backup is, I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. He's been playing very good. He's from Stanford. You get that guy in there. I mean, your path doesn't necessarily get easier, and I'm at this point, I'm looking for path of least resistance at this moment in time. Now I know things will change when we start playing real games, right? And when we figure out who we're matched up against next week, it'll be who it is, and we're just going to take that game head on. But right now, I want path of least resistance to the Super Bowl.
No doubt. So you're going to disrespect really the great Tanner McKee from the Eagles?
Yes, that guy, Tanner McKee.
Yeah. Tanner McKee, you're right.
They put him. I was watching the Philadelphia game 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
Right, throwing touchdowns, and it's fun. Everyone's like, "Oh, he looks a little better than Pickett. He looks like he's running the offense so much smoother."
Did you see that pass that Pickett tried to throw, where he basically threw himself into the ground?
Yeah, it was funny as all hell. And then Tanner McKee comes in there. He's smooth like butter. It's always funny.
He's just wheeling and dealing out there.
Hey, wheeling and dealing. So, listen, man, the Lions situation's good, man. It's fun. Dan Campbell, everyone's having a good time. Look at even Aaron Glenn trying to flex at the Pistons game, trying to get his run. To see all the podcasters that are out there talking to Lions and all the talk that, there's like 2-3 Lions going on podcasts every single week. DJ Reader went on Jim Rome. It's just been a fun situation to see, the way in which this football team is embraced, the love. You got this, if you check out at Detroit Podcast, I visited the place that's geniusly marketing Amon-Ra St. Brown. We'll post it on Lions on SI on Monday, but from the 13th until the 16th, from Monday until Thursday next week, anything that you buy at that location in Rochester that has the cake, you can get entered into a drawing to win free tickets to the division game. And those tickets probably are worth $500 face value. So go there, eat a cronut. I recommend it. I can only eat a sliver of it. It is so rich and crazy good. But people, I took my nephew there and there were people walking up. We literally had no less than 15 people we could choose from to take our photo. So it's beautiful marketing. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to make an appearance there. And he said that, he announced on his podcast that he's going to have a giveaway. Part of the ticket giveaway is just go there, make a purchase, and you'll be entered into the drawing. And on that Friday of next week, they'll do a random drawing and you can get yourself free tickets just by eating a ton of sugar and checking out the greatest cake creation in 2025 by a local business owner in Rochester. So it's fun, man. It's all fun, buzz for the Lions. It's all good. And we move forward. And also too, what's great is as a byproduct because of the Lions winning, you now have Michigan State Tom Izzo asked about Dan Campbell. You have, the Michigan Wolverines are asked about Dan Campbell. The Pistons and Wings have all embraced the grit mentality. So it's great. And you start to see a little bit of that. I'm not going to lie. I love the swagger of Todd McClellan. And, it's kind of like one of those deals where you say, oh, Todd, I was not familiar with your game. And you're just like, wow, you did. In fact, I thought it was a little bit corny when people were saying, oh, fire the coach and you'll get the new coach bump. But what the fuck? The Red Wings are giving the fan base the new coach bump. 5 straight wins, overtime winner on Monday, or on Tuesday, excuse me. It was unbelievable to see this hockey club fight for loose pucks, scoring goals a little bit better. DeBrincat seems a little bit more unlocked, and Kane looks a little bit freer. They look like they're not as tight. They're playing a good brand of hockey. Combine that with the Pistons. It's a fun time to be looking at the other Detroit teams to say, hey, you know what? We're Grit City. We're a city that embraces hard work, full effort, and the fan base supports that in regards to interest and knowing that, hey, you don't have to win every game, but try your hardest and put forth the effort. And I think the Red Wings to start have done that. Now the Pistons, the injury to Ivy is concerning. You'll see how it plays out, but they've broken, they got back to 500. And I think the Wings and Pistons will continue their run of good play so that we can keep talking about it. And I love I think right now, this group of coaches, all 4, when you look at McClellan, Bickerstaff, AJ Hinch, and Dan Campbell, the grit meter is off the charts. And I think that this collection of coaches is far, far better than the eras of Matt Patricia, Brad Ausmus, Monty Williams. You look at it and you say, the coaches in town have leveled up. I think this is a good sign for Detroit sports.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think the coaches that you have here right now are 10 times better than what we've had in the past. I think the addition of Todd McClellan has been a huge revitalization for the Detroit Red Wings. And look, I hammered Chris Ilitch earlier because I really feel like he's kind of set this team back behind the 8 ball. You could have allowed Steve Yzerman to make this move weeks ago. Instead, you really just wanted to sit on your pocketbook because you didn't want to cut a check. Listening to people that I know, it sounds like Steve Yzerman wanted to make this move last year. Did not necessarily want to go into the season with Lalonde as the head coach. So he was forced and his hands were tied because Ilitch didn't want to pay the buyout for it. Instead, you allow Steve Eisman to kind of do a couple of things, goes out, gets McClellan. They get the new coach bump. They're winning games. They're now a 500 hockey team, and they're playing good hockey. They're playing better hockey, more entertaining hockey. You fast forward a little bit. If this would have happened, I don't know, 8 games ago, you're all of a sudden in the hunt for a playoff spot, and you're trying to make up traction. You're trying to climb your way up the ranks. And then you look at the Pistons. I was at bowling the other night, and they had a Piston game on, and I was more into the Pistons game than I was in my league night bowling, because I was bowling so poorly, but the Pistons were playing so well. They were so entertaining. What Bickerstaff has been able to do with this roster and with some of these guys that they have, it's awesome to see right now. It is absolutely amazing. And we've already kind of know what A.J. Hinch can do. A.J. Hinch has the ability to basically take chicken shit and make chicken salad. So I think coaching staff-wise, all of the teams are in a much better spot. I think ownership-wise, the Red Wings are in dead last, and that's saying a lot because Tom Gore is above Chris Ilitch right now. Let that sink in. But hey, Tom Gore has stepped in and paid a boatload of money to get rid of Monty Williams because it wasn't working after a year. So you got a guy who at least understands, like, hey, a change has to be made. I've got to eat that cost. I'm going to do it. Whereas Chris Ilitch doesn't want to do any of that. He just wants to tax his fan base. Anyways, I digress. You have the Lions, obviously, playing in the playoffs, looking forward to a Super Bowl, number 1 seed. Last year, you had a crazy run by the Tigers, and they were able to get into the playoffs. We now look at the Detroit Pistons and we look at the Red Wings. Both of these teams are on the outside looking in, trying to get into the playoffs. Who do you think will continue this hot streak of winning and have the possibility to make a run into the playoffs?
Yeah, I look at it and I say, all right, Lions, they're set up for the future for a long time. They're a football team that's led by Jared Goff, and even though they might go through a coaching influx and a change with probably the defensive coordinator at the least, I think they're poised for a nice run. The Tigers may take a step back depending on, they may get to the postseason but not win that series. You never know because they do need more offensive help, and it was one of those deals where they're doing the development kind of thing. The Pistons, injury-wise, you got to make sure that you don't lose any more of your talent. That Jaden Ivey injury should play a factor with them, but I do think the emergence of Kate Cunningham is going to help them continue to be around a 35-41 win team, which is very good. That's growth, so that's fine. The Wings is tough because you need the goaltending to stay at that high level. You need the defense to play, and you recognize there were some things that caused the Wings to struggle. And right now you get that new coach bump, and you just hope that the scoring can continue and the solid special teams play in terms of power play, penalty kill can stay at that same level. So I would say the Wings are the team that could fall off, but I think that, moving forward, the confidence level is strong that they can at least get to the point where they can meet expectation to get to the postseason. That's the level, I think, with all the teams now we're at the level where we can say it's time to expect at least regular playoff appearances from all 4. The next step for the Wings, Pistons, and Tigers is what do you need to do to get to the next level, to get to championships, Final Fours, and moving up the ranks. And that's really tough. That's going to take the development part. I think the stabilization of talent acquisition is getting there for all 4. That's one aspect. The Lions have mastered the development of that talent acquisition. The Tigers have shown, maybe that they're not as good at developing that talent. At least offensively, as evidenced by Spencer Torkelson, some guys that have left the organization that start to end up hitting better. So you need to show that you can develop some of these guys that you bring up that are hitters. But I love to see Riley Green, Carpenter, and some of the offensive talent come up. And Jackson Jobe, the pitcher, I want to see what that looks like. And then the continuation of just how good, Tarek Skubal can be. So I'm very excited. This is maybe the new era of Detroit sports. And, maybe it takes until our podcast series hits in the 600s where we go, wow, 600 episodes of critiquing and ranting and raving. And now maybe the next 500 will be about championships, X's and O's, talent development, maintaining success, maintaining the destination that Detroit is the spot. And I think it's coming. Guys, get ready. 2 games away from the Super Bowl. 2 games away from eliminating one of the stains in Detroit sports, having the Lions never appear in the Super Bowl. Just 2 games. Health, play well, get excited, and Amon-Ra St. Brown said on his great podcast, he challenges the fans to get out there and take it to the next level of cheering and supporting and getting after it. You guys did a great job against the Vikings, and I can't wait to see. I can't wait to sit back, enjoy the playoffs, all of the games that are going to take place in the AFC, NFC over Wild Card Weekend, Super Wild Card Monday. I can't wait to check it out so we can evaluate who's next for the Detroit Lions. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. Message, get in the mix. You guys are great sports fans. Tammy's tweet already's gotten 200,000 views, and people are really looking at and debating what the fairness is. And I think that you guys are great as a fan base in that you rally around the right stuff. Make sure you message us anytime you want at Detroit Podcast. We'll be here. New Year kicked off strong. My guy Adam is doing his thing, and we are now enjoying some good, positive sporting events here locally with the Pistons and the Red Wings. And now you got the Lions, who are embarking on their next challenge, handling the number 1 seed and handling business in the divisional round. We'll be back next week. Our hour's up this week. We'll be back next week to break it all down. Lions against whoever. Good luck to them, because Ford Field's going to be a madhouse probably next Sunday. I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. Can't wait to fire it up with my guy Adam. And like I said, Doc and Jock means a lot to us, and we can't wait to bring you the next episode next time. For Adam Strzezinski, I'm John McAroon. I can't wait to fire it up next week for the next episode of Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.